Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Hello, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Worldview Matters. We're excited to say and remind you guys that you can go and watch all the sessions from the recent conference on the Worldview Matters YouTube channel. It's relatively new YouTube. We've been putting up all the podcasts on there, but you can get all the sessions from the Redeem the Time Worldview Matters conference, kicking off with Alex Newman and so many more great speakers. They're on there. You can watch the live stream, you can watch the panel, the Q&As, and each individual session. So check those out. It's free, great content, and we were just so blessed at Redeem the Time, and we're looking ahead to next year. I'll be announcing that in the next couple of weeks here. But we're going to jump right in here. We've got John Haller back with us. You want to make sure to check out some of the roundtables he's a part of and his website, Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube. You can follow him under the Live tab. You can get the prophecy roundtables, the one they most recently did, Technocracy, Transhumanism, Mark of the Beast, and look at all these guys: Patrick Wood, Scott Townsend, Britt Gillette, David Bowen, and Mr. Haller. John, good to see you. Thanks for your time.
Hi, David. Good to see you.
Thanks for all you do. It's amazing. I watched some of it last night, and I think a lot of people can maybe say the same thing as my head was spinning after just half hour. But anyway, we have a couple different directions we could go. You always are so great about doing the research and providing me some notes and ideas on what to condense and what people want to know about as far as the body of Christ and biblical worldview issues. And one of the articles you sent me was from Wired, and it's this anti-tech extremism. Apparently, the U.S. law enforcement is warning of this as hatred of AI is growing. This is multifaceted to me, John, because a lot of people are just now trying to understand AI, let alone like it or love it or hate it. So walk us through this, please, and tell us what's going on.
So you remember it was 7, 8, 9 months ago, Charlie Kirk was murdered in Utah.
Yeah.
After that, the president came out with a regulation to kind of, and this is sort of like the good news, bad news. It was to protect Christians and their right to express themselves in the public marketplace. But it also sort of dragged in a lot of concerns about extremism and fascism and that type of thing. The problem with this is that when you put a regulation like that, a joint terrorism task force and that type of thing, when you put that into local police departments, which I think was one of the ultimate goals of this regulation, it sometimes gets a very bad application, because we know that there are, I hate to say this, there are bad police departments here in the United States. There are major metropolitan areas where you can go in and steal stuff in a store, particularly if you're non-white, and they won't prosecute you. And they will come after people who try to stop it. This is something that's been going on in Britain. So in this particular case, and I think what the warning from U.S. law enforcement carries with it kind of, you guys better be careful and not mess up. What happened down in Texas, and I don't remember the exact city, it was a place where they were building data centers.
Yeah.
And a lady was, and I can't remember her name, she's been in the news, she's been doing interviews. She complained on a Facebook group that she had set up that there was brown water in the area around this new data center, which is, it seems like she's doing a community service to warn people. And in fact, by the way, the municipality eventually came out and said, hey, you should maybe boil your water if you live in this particular area.
So there was truth to that, the brown water?
Oh yeah, I mean they had pictures of it. She had video of it that she posted and pictures on her Facebook group. But
Wow.
before the municipality came out, she got a visit from the police. She was arrested on a felony charge under a Texas statute that is not allowed to make a bomb threat statute. She's never been arrested on anything. She's never had a speeding ticket or anything like that. And she was thrown in jail for the night.
Oh my goodness. Wait a minute. She posted something on a Facebook group about warning people about this?
Yeah, see, you're having trouble grasping the reality of the situation. I can see that you're struggling with this because it's sort of like, well, if there's a problem in your community, I mean, I belong to a neighborhood group.
Yeah.
We post stuff all the time, and in fact, there's a lot of people are active now, and they're saying we don't want any data centers near us because we live in a rural area outside Columbus, and they're building data centers all over the place. And they're going to continue to do this until they run out of money or we run out of electricity. But she was just sort of like a public service. Hey, there's an issue with the water, and she's charged under a bomb threat statute with a felony and spends the night in jail. Now, they came out, somebody intervened in the system and dropped the charges. But this is the point. She should have never been arrested in the first place. This has a and people do this. And the data center companies, I don't know that they stood up for her or anything like that. And there's just this, as I'm sure you've interviewed Patrick Wood, and Patrick was in our roundtable recently on AI and technology. And it's these, we'll call them the tech bros, the Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the guys at Anthropic, OpenAI, Sam Altman, and this whole group. And they have tremendous cachet and sway with the Trump administration. Trump is pushing the AI thing. And we talk on our roundtables about the problems with AI. And some of them are environmental. They do affect the water table. They have to have water to be cooled down. And so this lady complained about it or warned her neighbors, and she gets arrested on a felony charge. And when you look at the way and this is the problem with AI, there are, I think, good things that are coming associated with AI. It does make your life easier in some ways, but it's the good news, bad news. And the bad news is that it's subject to it's subject to being abused. And so, absolutely. In fact, a recent Technocracy newsletter that Patrick Wood put out talked about how the deep state weaponizes AI to control a narrative. And he has a very elaborate chart and graph. And I would highly recommend people to go there, subscribe to his Technocracy News, and get his newsletters and information, because he has one or two of these things every day. And I think he leaves a lot on the floor that doesn't really get into it. But this is the problem with AI, is that it makes weaponizing the system against people so easy. So you see it being used. For example, there's all kinds of videos that you can see on the problems in the UK. Pastors on the street sharing the gospel, reading scripture, are being arrested. There was a famous case of a lady who was walking by an abortion clinic and bowed her head, and she was immediately arrested for praying within the safe zone. She never said a word. She never uttered a peep. I don't even know that her lips were moving, but she was arrested. And whether the charges stick or not is kind of irrelevant, because if you ever get caught up in our legal system, you can win at great cost to your time and freedom and money and all that type of thing. And that's why we have this First Amendment, is to prevent that. But now it's being abused. And AI is helping people abuse the system. Let me give you one other example. In Israel, Israel is at war. Israel, we'll talk a little more about this, I'm sure, as we go through the program. Israel is at war on many fronts. When I was in Israel last fall, everywhere we went that was a significant cultural, historical site, there was a group of IDF soldiers in the Golan Heights, at Gaza, in the old city. Everywhere we went, we saw IDF soldiers, active IDF soldiers. They go on a heritage tour so they understand the nature of the state of Israel and its history and its how it's tied to the land that God promised to them in the Bible. And I remember up at the Golan Heights, I was taking picture looking into Syria. You know, you're about 35 miles from Damascus up there. And I accidentally caught a soldier in the corner of my camera on one side. And immediately there were 3 soldiers there saying, don't do that. Don't take any pictures of the soldiers, please. Because what's happened is some of those pictures are getting into the press, and these left-wing NGOs that are all funded by the same sources, by Qatar and other extremist organizations like under the Soros umbrella, they're now taking those pictures, running them through AI, finding out where the people live, and posting information, personal information about them on social media. They're doxing them.
Wow.
And that's extremely easy with AI. I mean, I'm an old guy, relatively speaking, but I think I could figure out how to do it in almost no time at all.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
It's a huge problem, and it's worse in Europe, but it's coming here.
Well, that goes back to the story, and we'll wrap it up in a couple minutes over at Wired, that this report warned of widespread upheaval in response to AI adoption. And it says the chaotic atmosphere that may result from emergent AI technology in the next 5 years may fuel large-scale protests that devolve into civil unrest and anti-tech violent extremist activity, especially in large urban areas. We didn't think about this. I didn't see this coming, but it makes sense. I mean, some people are losing jobs. It's not just about water quality or the data centers. Some people are losing jobs. Maybe some already have, and they're upset and they're getting angry about this. Wrap us up on this topic of AI and this extremism, John.
It's in all these governments, all the governmental entities here in the United States, they all have an intelligence bureau, counterterrorism, and that type of thing. And so the good thing was this was to prevent anti-Christian terrorism.
Yeah.
Like happened to Charlie Kirk. But the problem was the way this regulation is worded and how people interpret it at the local level and even the federal level is very troubling.
Okay.
And it will lead to unrest. It will lead to protest, and it is a very big problem.
Okay.
So there's the blessing and the curse thing that happens all the time with these type of regulations. And I'm a free speech guy. I don't like people saying bad things. I don't like Tucker Carlson and Propagandist Owens and some of the nonsense that they spew on I don't know how they put out the number of programs that they do. They obviously have a staff dedicated to misleading people.
Jeez.
But the problem is, I don't know if I want to shut them down. I don't mind that they're on platforms, right?
Yeah.
As long as you can criticize them freely.
And counter it. Yes.
And counter it. That's right.
Yeah.
And I think by letting them speak sometimes, they look, if you get a thinking person on the end of it, if they're thinking, if they understand, if they think, if they've been trained well, if they read, I know there's a lot of ifs. Tucker Carlson looks like an idiot.
Yeah.
But and he's always caught in these inconsistencies and everything. And the stuff he says is just, it's every day something comes across my feed that he's done recently, at least once, twice, 20 times.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit annoying, but it's very concerning that this is an issue.
So real quick, friends, Jeff put up that article at the very beginning of this conversation. Check it out. It's very thorough, very detailed over at Wired. Again, it's called U.S. Law Enforcement Warns of Anti-Tech Extremism as AI Hatred Grows. So before we jump into, we're really going over and talking about Turkey next, because we don't hear a lot about what's going on in Turkey and some of the issues there that are kind of surprising. But let's talk about Freedom Project Academy briefly, because fall's coming up. And they are now enrolling students, and they've been doing this for 16 years. FPA has delivered a fully accredited classical online education rooted firmly in Judeo-Christian values for kids in pre-K through high school. They offer live, anytime, and homeschool courses to fit your child's needs. Visit freedomforschool.com and save 10% on tuition when you use the code DAVID. Again, use DAVID and save 10% on all courses at Freedom Project Academy. One more time, here's the website, freedomforschool.com, and get started. Okay, John Haller, this is going by very, very fast. Now let's talk about Turkey. You sent me some bullet points, and there's so much in this and what's going on there that most people don't know about, because we don't hear Turkey in the news, right? Tell us about your concerns.
Yeah, well, look, first of all, when we look at it from a Bible prophecy standpoint, I don't think there's any question but that Turkey is, I think, the major player in the Ezekiel 38 coalition. There's an argument in our community. Is Russia Magog? Is Turkey Magog? I think the better answer to that is Turkey is Magog. That doesn't mean that Russia might not be involved in this invasion. And it also says Persia. But when Ezekiel wrote that passage, he was looking at the regions from where these people would come from, not necessarily where the people that were living in those regions ended up. So I think he's looking at the region. And so he describes Persia, Magog, Togarmah, Gomer. And clearly Turkey is a major, major part of that. And I believe that some of the better historical evidence is that Magog was in Turkey. So 25 years ago, Recep Erdogan became the prime minister of Turkey. He had been the mayor of Istanbul. He had won awards for recitation of the Quran while he was growing up. He used to stand on the bows of ferries across the Bosporus and quote the Quran, sort of in a singing voice. And he could do this to this day. When he took power in around 2003, I believe, 2001 or 2003, Turkey had a secular military. It was set up for secular military so the Muslims wouldn't take control. Well, he has completely decimated the non-Muslim aspect of the Turkish military. He throws reporters, press people in jail all the time. He's currently coming up on an election. And just this week, within the last 72 hours, the Supreme Court ruled that the person who was most likely who had been nominated to oppose him in the upcoming election, that nomination process was flawed and the guy could not run. And then he sent troops or police into the party headquarters and completely tore it apart. And so he's likely, if he runs or his son runs or somebody else that thinks like him, he's going to win. And he has systematically changed everything. About 20 years ago, he started an organization called Sadat, S-A-D-A-T, with one of his favorite generals who has since died, but the organization lives on. And what that guy did was replace regular secular Turkish military guys with Islamist guys. So we know that in the last year and a half, over the last 5 years, Erdogan carefully crafted an organization, a military, a group, militia in Syria. He had 51 bases around Idlib, Syria. When the the Syrian revolution took place in December of 2024, it came from Idlib. This Al-Jilani, Al-Shara, whatever you want to call him. I think one commentator calls him Al-Sharia, which I think is a good thing. He's a former terrorist. And it's beyond my comprehension why Erdogan and Al-Shara get such deference from our government. Al-Shara came to the White House last November, sat there in the Oval Office. It was interesting when he was there, the Turkish foreign minister who headed up the Turkish intelligence, the Turkish equivalent of the Israeli Mossad, is now the foreign minister, was sitting right there next to him in the Oval Office. Because I think he's Al-Shara's handler. And this was a very significant thing that the Sunni Islam, David Wormser made this notation a year later, that in December 2004, Sunni Islam took over Damascus, which was the center, the geopolitical and religious center of probably the largest Muslim caliphate in history. It lasted a little less than 100 years, but it was centered in Damascus. And as David Wormser says, now Sunni Islam has their geopolitical and religious capital under their control for the first time in over 1,000 years.
Wow.
This is significant geopolitically and significant prophetically.
Yes.
Turkey currently has a very active, very robust, very active defense industry, drones, unmanned flights. They're doing things that nobody else is doing, defense-wise. They've now announced a project to build drones in all 81 Turkish provinces that there are. And this drone technology, and we can see what's going on with Ukraine, and I think some of the success that Ukraine has had against Russia. I think 97% of Russian soldiers and military equipment that's destroyed is now destroyed by first-person drones, little drones.
Wow.
And this is happening, and this is a big problem right now with, I think Israel will solve it, but right now, Israeli soldiers and people are dying because of these small drones that they put a grenade on. And you can't see them. And then they're using fiber optics. They can fly about 6 miles with these fiber optic wires. And of course, it leaves a lot of, you can imagine 6 miles of fiber optic wire would leave a pile of stuff behind. This is a huge problem. Turkey currently has the largest nuclear power plant in the world under construction on the Mediterranean using Russian technology. Now, around May 20, the week around May 19th to 21st, I attended the Middle East Forum Conference in Washington, D.C. These are experts, Daniel Pipes, Dexter Van Zyl, all superb, knowledgeable people who make understanding what's going on in the Middle East their life's work. We did a war game. The war game was very interesting. The war game involved Turkey wanting to get nuclear material. So when people in Israel say that Turkey is the next Iran, take them seriously. And this has, as I said, geopolitical, religious, and prophetic overtones.
Yes.
And the Turks drove us crazy in the war game, I would say. They were impossible. It was like dealing with Iran.
You can't negotiate with them, right?
Right. And you need to remember, too, that we talk about anti-colonialism. Israel's a colonial power taking over that particular country. Until 1453, we had a thing called the western half of the Roman Empire, the eastern half, I'm sorry, survived the western part of the Roman Empire by over 1,000 years. Western part of the Roman Empire fell. The place centered in Constantinople lasted another 1,000 years. But then the Anatolia Peninsula, where Turkey is located, very strategically geographically important thing. They were invaded by Turks from Central Asia. And so there's a lot of ethnic tension there, but the Turkish tribe, the Turkmen tribe, is rising. And when you look at some of our Bible prophecy colleagues, they will use maps and they will show Magog going up into Central Asia, into what we call the Stan republics, Kazakhstan, Kurdistan, those things. Their Turkish orientation. And Erdogan was just there recently. The children were chanting, "He's the father of us Turks." Very, there's a very ethnic, tribal, religious component to this. They're all Muslims. And now they have a thing in the Turkish textbooks. They're changing the maps. By the way, if you watch Turkish guys on TV in the government and that type of thing, everybody's got a map. I mean, it's really kind of comical, but you ask them a question, they pull out a map because they're redrawing the map. And so what they're doing is now the Central Asia used to be what they called those Stan republics in Turkish textbooks. About a year and a half ago, those textbooks were all changed to refer to Turkestan. And now we have this thing called the Organization of Turkic States. There was just a big meeting. Erdogan was at it. It took place in Kazakhstan. Now, why is that relevant? Turkey is becoming a nuclear problem. It will become a nuclear problem. Turkey is the next Iran. Erdogan was just in Kazakhstan. And guess what? Kazakhstan produces 40% of the world's uranium.
Wow.
And we have a big problem. And
yes.
And so I think the thing in the Middle East is difficult to figure out. It's incredibly complex. This war game exercise only reaffirmed that.
Yeah.
But Israel needs to be given the ability to finish the job on three fronts: Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iran. And then they need to push all of their resources to getting ready for the Turks.
We don't hear much. Yeah. We don't.
Almost everybody in Israel that's in the security services is talking about it.
Okay.
It doesn't get a lot of publicity, but Erdogan is trying to redo the map. And so when you look at Ezekiel 38, it says, "I will draw you back." The implication is you were here and you left. Well, the Turks ruled Jerusalem for 400 years, from 1517 to 1917, when the British kind of booted them out. But they're coming back. They're planning on coming back. They think that whole area is theirs. And I can take you to friends that I know in Jerusalem, Turkish tourists, and people come. And sometimes they'll go on a tour of something in the old city. And then the people will come back and say, "By the way, we're coming back to take back what's ours."
Wow. All right, brother. Crazy times to be continued. Yeah. Don't just follow what the news reports, but keep your eye on Turkey. We're gonna watch for some of these things. John, thank you so much for all you do. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, David.
God bless you, friends. And as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.